Welcome back to Access Anime. I'm Henshin Ikeda, and today I'll be doing a walkthrough and review of Magi Episode 8. Now, if you remember from last episode, we're finally in Bulbad. Now, we're introduced to multiple characters throughout the episode, three of which would stick out the most. Sinbad, Jafar, and Muzuru. Now, Muzuru is from the Dark Continent, and he's a Phenelius, which is the same race as Morgana, and they're both from the same continent, the Dark Continent. Thought I'd point that out. Now, we don't know a lot about his background because there really wasn't much to discuss. Moving on to Jafar, the same thing. They're in the same boat. We don't know anything about his past, nothing. We don't know anything about his background, but we do know both of them work with Sinbad in general. But out of both of them, Jafar looks the most shady. Very shady in my opinion, just putting that out there. Now, Sinbad we were introduced to at the beginning of the episode, he was actually being robbed by three thieves. Kind of out of luck there. He was literally stripped down. They took the clothes off of his back, so I thought that was funny. I do find it funny because he looks lazy throughout the episode. Now, we do find out he actually is the High King of the Seven Seas. Now, he did have 7 Dajin, but they were stolen from him by those 3 thieves, which I don't believe they even know they stole the 7 different Dajins, so it's kind of funny. But again, Sinbad did have 7 different Dajins, which means he completed 7 different dungeons in general. So I thought that was also interesting. Moving on to the next scene, we see Morgana and Aladdin. Now, the reason why they're in Bulbad, other than to find Alibaba, is to get Morgana to the Dark Continent. Now, the only way to get to the Dark Continent is through the Bulbad port. Now, at the current moment, it's closed down because of the Fog Troop. Now, Sinbad actually takes it upon himself to try to get rid of the Fog Troop. Now, what the Fog Troop actually is made up of a lot of thieves with a couple magic abilities, and they're causing chaos throughout the whole port, the city in general. They're kind of like Robin Hood, but instead of paying everyone, like giving free stuff out, they're paying people to be quiet in general. They're winning their favor through money, so they're not really that smart or nice in general, in my opinion. But moving past that, we do know that Morgana and Aladdin are with Sinbad in order to get rid of the Fog Troop, so Morgana can actually go to the Dark Continent. Now, toward the end of the episode, we find out Aladdin does find Alibaba, but Alibaba's on the Fog Troop side, which we don't know why. Now, Alibaba does have Hugo out, and it looks like there's a battle about to brew. But again, that was last episode, and this is a new episode, so let's dive right in. And again, I'll hold my final thoughts on my rating at the end of the clip, so stay tuned. But let's dive right in. Now, we open up this scene with Alibaba and Aladdin about to fight. But, kind of interesting, Alibaba calls it quits, kind of, and says, "Look, Aladdin, call Hugo away. It's kind of making my friends uncomfortable," and I can't believe it. Alibaba pulled it off because Aladdin gets rid of Hugo, and now he's defenseless, and then he tells Aladdin, "I'm sorry, I can't keep my promise." And then he walks by him with the thieves, and they start stealing a lot of crap, like the treasure that was in the treasure vault or the room in general. But before they can get their hands on anything expensive, the guards come. That's right, the guards are about to come. They hear him in the background. Now we see Alibaba pull out his dagger. Now it has a Dajin in it. That's right, I told you a few episodes ago. I was wondering when we were going to see it. We don't get to see the Dajin's physical form, but we do get to see Alibaba actually summon the powers of his Dajin, which by the name is Amon, by the way. I thought I'd point that out. His Dajin is called Amon, or Amon, depending how you want to pronounce it. And we see flames everywhere, so the guards, they don't get to capture Alibaba or the Fog Troop in general, because I guess the Fog Troop used Alibaba as their escape card, more or less. So you see flames everywhere, and that's it. Now we are taken to a different scene the following day. So now it's morning. We see Jafar telling Sinbad that there is, in fact, among the thieves of the Fog Troop, one, which they are actually talking about Alibaba, by the way, that he actually finished a dungeon as well. So now Sinbad knows a little more about Alibaba. Now, while they're talking, Jafar and Sinbad, we are taken to a different scene, kind of in the background, where we see Morgana. She's sniffing around, and it looks like she picked up a scent, but we don't know of what. But if you remember from last episode, she could smell the sea pretty good. So she's kind of like a bloodhound, in my opinion. But again, we don't know what she's smelling at all. But before we could even find out, we're taken to a different scene. We see Alibaba talking to Chasm, and we see those 3 thieves that kind of hijacked Sinbad's crap at the beginning of last episode. Yeah, they're being recruited by the Fog Troop, so that was kind of interesting. And we also find a little more information out about Alibaba and Chasm. Now, apparently they were childhood friends, and they grew up together in the slums. I thought I'd just point that out. That's their relationship right now. At least that's how we know they're connected. Now we are taken to a different scene. We see Alibaba. He's in his house now, or at least his room. Now, I thought this was hilarious because we see Morgana. She appears out of nowhere and kind of jumps him from like the top of the... She's like above the bed, and she's trying to take him hostage so she can bring him back to Aladdin. and he's crying, he's squirming, and she has him in her arms. Morgana has Alibaba in her arms, and she's like, you know what, I'm taking you to see Aladdin, you guys gotta talk. You guys can't live like this. So she jumps to the rooftop and she's off to see Aladdin with Alibaba in her arms. I thought that was hilarious. Now we are taken to a little cutscene where we see those 3 thieves that actually robbed Sinbad go through all of his loot and whatnot. Now I'm pretty sure they don't see any of the Dajin, like the artifacts or the tools, because they're just trying to sell the gold and silver, but they see a piece of paper with the Ku Empire logo on it, the little mark, and they don't even know the value of it, so they just kind of not throw it away, but they're not paying attention to it. They're just trying to sell the gold and silver in general. But again, we don't know what the real value of that Ku Empire piece of paper is, but we are taken to a different scene with Jafar, and he's talking to Sinbad as well as Muzuru, and he's pointing out apparently the reason why Bolbad's economy is going through the shitter and it's crappy is because of the Ku Empire. They have paper money, and it's flooding the markets, and it's definitely hurting the economy, and it definitely shows. Now we also find out the current ruler of Bolbad, which is Abimed. I hope I pronounced his name right. Abimed apparently has sided with the Ku Empire under their influence. So the Ku Empire definitely has a lot of influence over Bolbad's ruler right now. To make it even worse, Abimed has married one of the Ku Empire's princesses. So now they have him underneath his thumb. I was like, figures, right? Now we're taken to a different scene. Now we're in Aladdin's room now, and he's kind of tired. He looks so gloomy. I've never seen him this kind of sad. Now he's kind of trying to talk himself out of a lot of different things. He doesn't know where to go, what to do, and he's trying to make the best thing out of a bad situation. But before you know it, we see Morgana, and she appears straight through the window with Alibaba in her arms, and there you go. You got Alibaba face to face with Aladdin. So I thought it was kind of hilarious. Now again, they kind of are trying to chit-chat back and forth. We find out it's been a half a year since either one of them have seen each other, and they're talking, they're trying to do a little light catch-up, and then Morgana actually jumps in and says, cut the BS. You know, Alibaba, talk. Why are you with the dark, why are you with the fog troop? Like, what's going on? And the best thing that we get from him is like, I can't really talk to you about a lot of things, but let me start off by telling you a story about my friend. I'm like, really? We're gonna go there? So I thought, okay, let's humor him. Let's hear this story about your friend. So we are taken to a flashback. But just before the flashback, we do find out apparently, yes, Alibaba is not the leader of the Fog Troop. He's more or less the figurehead because of his power with the Dajin. The real leader is Chasm. He is the real leader. Just thought I'd point that out. But sorry, I digress. Back to the flashback. Now we see the flashback of Alibaba's mother. Now he was really loved by his mother, and she was a prostitute. I didn't know that. I'm like, wow, that came out of left field, way out of left field. I didn't see that coming. Now we do find out she was a prostitute, and she was in the slums, so it is confirmed that Alibaba's mom was a prostitute, but she did love him, and she was really nice. She looked really nice in my opinion, and he was actually raised in the slums. So again, I thought that was interesting. Now, as for Chasm, he actually has a sister, which I didn't know he had a sister, and he's being beaten by his father, so his father is horrible. And then one day his father goes missing, but that figures, right? It's the slums. It kind of happens. So Alibaba's mother ends up taking both Chasm and his sister in, and they become part of the family. And they get really well together, to be honest. They're really nice, happy, everything. But we are taken to a different scene where we find out Alibaba's mother, she's dead. She passed away due to illness. Now, Chasm actually steps up and says he'll protect. He basically said, I'll protect you. I didn't see this coming. He doesn't look the type. Now, sadly, Chasm, he kind of fell over time to the dark side, per se. He joined a group and kind of turned to thievery. Now, one day, this is a different scene, later on, one day you see Alibaba ask Chasm, should I be helping you with your thievery? And Chasm replied, no, I don't want to taint you. You're a good person. You're not like me. And that was kind of interesting. I really would love to explore that scene more, because it kind of looked like Chasm was giving Alibaba a chance not to become like him. But I digress. Moving on, we are taken to a different scene where we see the king of Bolbad, the past king. Well, at that point in time in this flashback, he's the current king, but not the future king in what's present in the anime series. But this old king of this, sorry, I get off track, of Bolbad, is right in front of Alibaba's house in general, and he's there to pick Alibaba up because he's his father. Now we get more information about Alibaba's mother I didn't know this. Her name was Anise, A-N-I-S-E. Now, I hope I pronounced the name right. I was going to call it Ines, so I'm going to assume that Alibaba's mother's name is Ines. Now, she apparently worked in the royal palace as a maid. So I didn't know that. So again, the king of Bolbad at that time is Alibaba's real father. And he comes to pick him up and he wants him to live at the palace. Now we are taken to a little time skip in this flashback. 3 years have passed and you see Alibaba sneaking out of the palace for the first time in 3 years, and he goes back to the slums, exactly where he was raised, and he finds out it's been cleared out. There's nothing there. But he does run into Chasm. Chasm asks him a question: how did you get out of the palace without getting noticed? And, you know, Alibaba replies, tunnels. So I was like, why would you tell him that? Because what ended up happening later is he's being followed. You know, Chasm says goodbye, and Alibaba heads back to the palace. But Alibaba is unaware that he's being followed. Now, we are taken to a different scene. We see Alibaba, he made it to the castle, or, you know, the palace. He's talking to his father, the king, and he's on his deathbed. His father looks like he's about to die. And what happens is the king tells, you know, Alibaba, I want to leave you the country. The country is yours. I want you to have it. And he basically points out that Abamid, I don't know if Abamid's his other son or his brother or, you know, a minister, but apparently he is the present king after, you know, the father dies. But Abamid, apparently he's not really loyal to the country, to Bolbad. He likes other countries, so he's more open to other countries in general, such as the Ku Empire. So he's not to be trusted. But, you know, that's kind of why, you know, Alibaba's father ends up leaving him the country. But before, you know, we go any further, sorry, I don't want to digress anymore, but we find out that Alibaba asks his father a question: did you love my mother? Well, more or less, he asked a different question, like, how do you feel about his mother? And, you know, we go a little drama, because we hear the father talk about how his feelings are toward his ex, you know, I want to call her something else, but Alibaba's mother, you know, she's passed away, so we're hearing his father express his feelings, and he's like, you know what, I loved your mother, plain and simple. And that was enough to seal the deal, because, you know what, Alibaba jumped on board. He wants to become king. Now we are taken to a different scene. He's leaving, you know, his father's bedroom, and he sees Chasm, and the palace is being looted by these guys that followed Alibaba in. Just thought I'd point that out. And before you know it, Chasm says don't hurt him, but Alibaba gets knocked out. Now we see him waking up and he sees the palace on fire and his father being burnt alive. So I didn't understand that. So Chasm, what did you do? I think Chasm betrayed his friendship. That's my opinion. Now again, we are taken to the end of the episode. Now we're no longer in the flashback, and we see Chasm. He's giving orders to his men to go find Alibaba, because again, he is with Aladdin and he left in the middle of the night. But again, that was the end of the episode. Now, as for final thoughts, first of all, my assumption of Alibaba is that he didn't really join the Fog troops because of friendship. I believe he joined out of revenge, to get revenge for his father's death that Chasm caused. But that's my opinion. Now, a couple other final thoughts. I don't know anything about Jafar, but I do think there's a catch. I think he has a dark background, in my opinion, and I want to see where that's going to go. Now, as for Alibaba, I have no idea if we're going to see more of a character progression in the next episode. I think we get to see in the next episode probably what he's going to do with Chasm in general, because if you remember at the end of this episode, Chasm is now out looking for Aladdin. Well, not just Aladdin, I should say Alibaba. But Alibaba's with Aladdin, so eventually he's going to put two and two together and figure, you're siding with Aladdin probably, or you're doing something behind my back, I may have to kill you or something. I don't really know, I'm a little confused, but what I do know is that Alibaba has a Dajin, Amon. Now because he has that, the Fog Troop respects him, or, you know, respects him to some extent, which is why he's the figurehead, kind of like what Joan of Arc was, because Joan of Arc was the figurehead of the French army for a short time, then she was a martyr. So I believe that's what they're trying to make, you know, Alibaba pretty much. Now I'm also want to do one more final thought. Sinbad. I'm just curious where you're at. Where are you at in this episode? I mean, are you going to jump in and find out that Alibaba is in your own hotel is like that close by you, what are you going to do? You're going to have him killed? You're going to side with him? We don't know. I'm just putting that out there. But that ends it for my final thoughts. Now I'm moving past that. Final rating. I'm giving this a 3.5 out of 5. I want to give this a 4, but there were no battle scenes. There were a lot of information, but it was just the build-up. I want more. So I'm giving this a 3.5 out of 5, plain and simple. But that ends it for my final thoughts. Now, that ends it for my walkthrough and review of Magi Episode 8. Now, I still have one more walkthrough and review to do tonight, but I may do that tomorrow, but we'll see. But again, comment down below, thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe above. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know what you thought is going to happen in the next episode. And again, definitely comment and check me out on Twitter and follow me if you like. But again, that ends it for now. Before I go, I gotta say it. Can't stop the access, but you can watch the feed. I'll see you later, guys.